Hi everybody, this is John Darst with Darst Light Show, and I want to give you a little behind the scenes of something new we're doing this year. We are entering my truck into the local Christmas parade. So this is a nighttime parade where each vehicle displays lights on the truck, trailer, whatever they're driving. And there's a theme for this. This year the theme is out of this world. So that was a little bit of a challenge for us coming up with an idea. But we've got a plan and we're executing tonight. So here, as I get everything finished, put together, I wanted to show you how it all is going to work. Here we go. So this all starts here in the engine bay, because one of my objectives or goals in doing this was I didn't want to run a generator. I wanted to run everything off of the truck so it could all be clean, contained, and easy for me to manage and troubleshoot. I'm an electrical guy, so I'm not much for small engines such as generators and weed eaters and that kind of thing. So I stick on the electronic side. So what we did was basically, a car runs at what's generally regarded as 12 volts DC. That can really range anywhere from like 10 to 14 volts. For the controls that we use in our light show, typically we use 12 volt controls. So that would kind of make sense, right? I have a 12 volt car system, 12 volt controls, everything works together. The problem is the controls and the lights and everything that I use in my light show, they can't handle 14 volts. So they need 12, they don't need 10, they don't need 14. So I had two options. I could regulate everything to 12 volts so it stays at a constant 12 volts. But to get that as a good clean 12 volts, that gear is pretty expensive, and it was kind of outside the budget I had set for what I wanted to do. So instead, I am going to run all of our controls and our lights. I bought different lights with the truck, and we're going to run everything at 5 volts. So to accomplish that, I started over here in our engine bay, and basically I've tapped off the battery here. So you can see I've got a lead coming off of the battery, and that's going down here through a circuit breaker right here in the middle. So I can cut power on to the whole system or off to the whole system if I need to. That's got control wires or power distribution wires going over here to the other side. So you can see how I ran that. And this is in a 2020 F-150, if that matters. So if you're doing any comparisons or anything. So that comes over here, and nestled right down here, I've got a little control box or a relay box. And it's not really mounted anywhere. I haven't quite figured out how I want to do that yet, but it's going to work for now. It's not going anywhere, but this is a box with, let me see, 6 different relays in it. And the relay basically allows me to take power from the battery, so from these power lines coming into the box, and then distribute that to 6 different areas, and I can control them from inside the cab. So I can turn each relay on and off to distribute the power. Now again, from here, there's a few ways to do this. So what I chose to do was to take, for each relay output, which is these cables right here. I mean, you see this red wire connected. That's my hot wire that I'm distributing to other areas of the truck. Now, what some people do is they take just a hot wire and they go and they run it where they want it to run. And then to complete the circuit, they tie the other side of the control system to the chassis of the vehicle, which gives them what's considered a ground reference or a common reference. So instead of doing that, I bought a deal on Amazon where I got marine grade or water resistant and UV resistant cable. And it's got a common and a hot wire. So it's a 2 conductor cable. So I can see here I've got red and black conductors. And I use that instead. And I did this because it provides some extra insulation and protection of the cable running to the back of the truck, as opposed to using wire loom or anything like that. I just run these cables. And all that this is doing is this is distributing power. So I've got red wires, I've got black wires that are all attached to a distribution point, and that's terminated to the chassis right over here against the chassis behind this bolt. So you can see that big thick black wire. So basically I do all of my power distribution right here, and I've got 4 different control circuits hooked up. I'm actually only going to use 3 of these this time around. And then I've got 2 open spots, and I'll probably end up putting in like a light bar, or, you know, some people put in like rock lights or different kind of things like that. That's what these relay boxes are typically used for. Sometimes like the KC lights that people put up on their cab, you know, that kind of thing. But obviously I'm using it for an entirely different purpose. So from here, basically, all without going in the cab, I run these power distribution wires, and I've got one that's loose right here. And I'm going to be using that for a control box that I set right up here on the window, because I have some lights that are up here at the front of the truck. So I've just got that loose so I can put it where I want it. And then I've got 3 more down here, and these 3 are all running to the back of the truck. So they go down out of the engine bay, underneath, and I run them along the chassis, up over the wheel wells, all the way to the back of the truck. So if we go take a peek back here, you can see what I've got going on. And sorry for the other junk in the picture, but you see here, and I don't have these permanently mounted yet just because I've still been kind of messing with everything, but I bought these basically panel mount adapters with what are called SAE plugs, or standard automotive plugs. And those fit right in these pre-existing holes in the chassis, or in the body. So I didn't want to drill any new holes. I'm just not really a big fan of that. So these allow me to have a nice, clean, flush mount. And then I can take my control boxes and I can plug into here. Or in the future, say we go camping and I want a 12-volt refrigerator back here, or I want to run a little grill, or I want to, you know, put a TV back here. You know, I can use these 12-volt auxiliary plugs for anything that I want. So I've got 2 right here, so that you can see. And then you can't really see, but up there at the front, right there in the middle, I have one as well. And you see all this other wood structure back here. We'll come back to this in a little bit. Right now I'm talking about power. So those are the 3 boxes in the back. If we come up here at the front of the truck, what you'll find is this control box. So this control box is what allows me to turn the 6 different relays on and off. Now this also has an enable. So I've got the enable wired up to a fuse that in the front that only turns on when the truck is on. So if I kill the truck, everything turns off automatically. When I turn on the truck, let me jump in here. I can now come and turn individual outlets or plugs on and off that I have wired up. All right, so see they're on now. And then when I turn off the truck, as soon as basically my accessory timer runs out, these will turn off here in just a minute automatically. Okay. Now this guy has just basically a small wire harness that runs through up to the engine bay where that relay box is. And this is probably the hardest part of the project because you have to go through the firewall. Now, like I said, I'm not one for drilling holes in the truck and everything. So if we look under here, right there in the middle, that black round circle, that was a pre-existing wiring harness, okay? That went through the firewall, has a boot that insulates everything. So basically I cut a couple of zip ties and I used that existing boot going through the firewall. So that goes directly into the engine bay. And just fitting the plug through there and getting everything without completely mangling it up was the most difficult part of this whole thing. So basically if we go look at the front side, we'll see if I can get a view of that or not. But basically, I'll get the camera there in a minute, but if you look right back there, get this stuff out of the way, maybe. All right, let me get the focus set. I don't know if we're gonna be able to see it. Anyway, right back there in that hole, you'll find that black round circle, just like what I had on the other side. So that's where the cable runs out of this box, it goes through into the cab, and that's my power distribution. So I did all this, I don't know, about a month or 2 ago. It was kind of, you know, not a whole lot of information out there, especially related to Christmas lights. Oh, the one other thing I want to show you is that accessory wire I was talking about. So over here in this fuse box, basically I did some testing and I found, you can see where this comes in, where that black plug is, that's an add-a-fuse that's using an existing power that already turns on and basically just runs a very small low current signal over across, let me get this put back on, I'll do that in a minute. Anyway, it goes over with that same cable assembly to that control box, so it turns it on and off automatically with the truck. So that is my power distribution. Here in a little bit I'll show you how we step down the power, and then eventually we'll cover how everything gets mounted and assembled and all that kind of stuff. Hope you enjoy. Okay, here's the next thing. So now we've got my controllers here. I'm using 3 different controllers. Now there's a ton of different ways to do this. That you can do individual controllers. You can do like one controller with wires running everywhere. I preferred, since I'm using 5-volt pixels, I didn't want to deal too much with voltage drop and doing a lot of power injection. So what I did was I distributed my 12 volts to different areas, and then from there I'll step down to 5 volts where I need it. And that turns out to be about 2 different areas in the truck. But you know, the reason I wired in, like I showed earlier, power here at the back and power up there at the front, if you can see it, see that one little hanging in there, was so that I'd have options for where to spread out the 12 volts and not have to deal with voltage drop at 5. So I've got 3 different enclosures here. You know, obviously you have options there as well. These are in 3 different sizes. They're all the same controller, so they're all AlphaPix 4. I use that because that's what I have, and I'm used to them because I use those in my full light show over here at the front of the house. Okay. You can see here there's a couple of different arrangements. So this has a 5-volt 30 amp supply. This has a 5-volt 20 amp supply and a 5-volt 20 amp supply. So these are basically stepping down from this SAE plug at 12 volts, go down through the buck converter, step down to 5 volts and power the controller, and then the controller is going to send 5 volts out to the pixels. So you can see I've got that set up here on each of these. This one I did larger just so I'd have more capacity, where I'm a little bit more dense with my display. And then I also wired in some additional wiring here at the back for power injection, just in case I needed it. Now it turns out I'm probably not going to need it unless I run into any problems testing tonight, but it's there just in case. And that all runs off of that same power supply, just to keep things pretty simple and straightforward. So what I'm going to do here real quick is we're going to power this on. And let's see, so I've already got it turned on up there at the front, and we can see here my controller is now booting up. I've got a light on my power supply, and then once I'm plug in and connect to a network, then I'll have everything up and talking and hook up my pixels, and I'll be able to control them. So that just kind of gives you an idea of some different options you can do. This one where I use the smaller enclosure, this one I'm doing up at the front of the truck. And I basically weatherproofed everything a little bit better because I was more worried in case it rained about splashing and that kind of stuff. Where these back here in the back of the truck, I'm not as worried about because they're pretty well weather protected for the most part. So that gives you a pretty good idea. I'll be back with the next phase here in a minute. Okay, we are back behind the scenes, and I wanted to show you our fit test. So this is basically how I make sure everything kind of fit together. It's going to hold in place. I'm not turning them on right now because I've already gone through that, but I'll do another video of testing them once we get to the show tonight and start getting ready for the parade. So I'm going to start up here. Well, I guess I'll start right here. So if you're familiar with modern pickup trucks, you'll know that we can't put magnets on the doors because they are aluminum. So I was able to find a static cling sticker and had this professionally printed, and basically it'll peel right off when we're done, and I can save it for any future things that we decide to do. You see these straps here? That one I'll show later. I'm not going to hang those again right now, but this is, we have a couple of TIE fighters. and those TIE fighters are going to hang there. So again, I'll show those in the next video that I do. So up here at the front, we can see a couple things. Got a couple of lightsabers up on the window, and got a Darth Vader here at the front. The Darth Vader gave me a little bit of fit, the helmet, on trying to figure out how to mount it, because I didn't want to do anything that was going to tear up the truck, obviously. Any attempt I made to kind of tie off up here near the grill looked like it was going to damage the grill, and I didn't want to spend a few $100s on that. So kind of thing was the most structural thing on the front, and that would be the tow hooks. So as you can see here, I slabbed together a couple of old 2x4s with an eye bolt, and I hung that using zip ties from the existing tow hooks. Drill the hole in the front, and you can see a piece of EMT or a conduit going there into the hole in the bricks. So basically, where normally these would kind of swing back, what I did was I've got mounts on the back of this helmet that already used EMT to kind of hold everything together. So I just made that longer than it needed to be, and it sticks down into that hole in the 2x4s. And once I kind of prop it up and pull it up into place, it rests against the license plate. So I added a little bit of foam tape in there. You can see kind of right there in the middle. Just again to protect the paint. And you can see up here, I stay completely away from the grill. And this bad boy is not going anywhere. I mean, this is probably as structural as the rest of the truck. You see I wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. The bottom doesn't budge. This thing is rock solid. Up here at the top, basically I tied it to a couple of holes that were existing in a frame that went across the middle, and that just kind of holds things steady side to side. But this bad boy is rock solid. I'm going to leave it on there today, and I'll drive up to the parade route with that in place. I'm not worried about it at all. So up here on the lightsabers, these guys, they're just resting here right now. You see this little hole here in the Coro. I'm going to take a rope, and I'm going to tie that to the mirror over here, and I'm going to tie one from the other side, and that will hold those into place side to side, and they're leaning back pretty good, so I'm not worried about those flying up or catching wind or anything like that. Here's that control box. It'll go up here in the front. So it's just sitting here right now. Like I said, I don't have it all hooked up right now, but it will just rest up here, you know, something like that. Again, I'm not too worried about it bouncing around or going anywhere. So that's the stuff up here at the front. Back here at the back, you can see I've got 4 trees, and I've got 4 on each side. Up at the top, there's a Death Star. And down here I've got a little snowflake. And then back at the back, I've got another Vader helmet and lightsabers. All right, so let's explore all this a little bit. So Vader helmet is resting on my tow hitch, and I've got some zip ties on there to basically hold it all stationary. I put a moving blanket behind it because there are a couple of contact points where it touches the tailgate, and I wanted to protect those. And then basically what I did was I needed some way to keep this kind of stationary, which you can see it still kind of wiggles because I haven't tightened it all up really good. But my truck has one of those built-in steps in the tailgate. So basically I lifted that up a little bit and put a 2x4. Here, let me see if I can peek under this rope enough to show you. And you can see there's the structure of the step. And I've zip tied that 2x4 in place where the step kind of rests down on it. Those zip ties keep it from wiggling around. And then I use the step to tie this rope around in the middle to hold everything together. And then the 2x4 just kind of gives it a little bit of structure there so it doesn't wiggle or anything. Let's see, so let's take a peek in the bed. And you saw some of this earlier. In the bed here, you see a lot of wood. Well, obviously that's not in its natural environment, but over here on the side, F-150s come equipped with these E-track mounts is what they're called. So that's that black plate that's bolted onto the side of the truck, and they make adapters called E-track lumber adapters or 2x4 adapters, where you can go in and it's made to kind of cradle a 2x4. And it's got a couple of holes where you can add support screws. So I used that to build framework. So basically I made a box, and then that box provides me a couple of things. First, for my trees, if I back up a little bit here, you can see on the trees, I've got these mounts, again, with EMT. All of these mounts on the trees came from a company called Inspire Light Shows. So they designed 3D print files for different Christmas props and Halloween props and that kind of stuff. The trees came from Gilbert Engineering. So basically I bought the design of these brackets, and then I printed them all on my 3D printer. That was a gift from my gracious wife for my birthday this year. I've been putting it to use a lot, so you'll see, you know, on the Vader I had 3D printed brackets with the EMT on all these trees. Got them up there on the Death Star. I'm kind of proud on the ones on the Vader and the ones on the Death Star. I designed all those from scratch because nobody had designed mounts for them. So I custom did some designs. I custom did this little bracket here in the middle, all designed in Tinkercad and then printed on my Bamboo 3D printer. So then basically I took this design as it was, and again I extended the conduit down. So the trees are resting on the rail here for my tonneau cover on the truck, and then I've got these mounts down here. Okay, back into focus. These mounts down here are, again, 3D printed designs. I've got those screwed into the 2x4s, and they basically just kind of hold everything stationary. So these aren't really heavy, but the weight is supported by the framework for my tonneau cover. And then this, again, just keeps everything from twisting or falling backwards or doing anything like that. So I've got that going along both sides for all 8 trees. So those are pretty straightforward. The Death Star was a whole different animal. So I wanted it to be up high, you know, so basically I am using a 1 1/4 inch fence rail. Again, 3D print there in the middle. You can see with that guy, it's basically a big block that I designed as a sleeve. And so you can see it extends kind of down the bottom. This guy's about 6 inches tall. So once I block it in, it holds that pole really, really solid. So it doesn't wiggle around a whole lot. I'm not worried about it caving over on the truck or, you know, anything like that. So I 3D printed that and then blocked it in with the 2x4s to hold everything stationary. Up at the top, again, a lot of 3D brackets. I've got 2 Death Stars, one on the passenger, one on the driver's side, and then some custom brackets there in the middle, kind of all holding everything together. So hopefully all this holds. This will be my first go around, you know, driving around and testing it, you know, with dips and bumps and stops and starts and all that good stuff. So let's see, finally, last thing, again, the lightsabers here on the back. It's pretty straightforward. Again, I did my own design 3D printed brackets for these guys, just kind of hold everything stationary. So they will be zip tied to this 2x4 down here at the bottom to hold them in at the bottom. And then at the top, basically I've got a stick of EMT going from the bracket on the back of these to, again, a custom made little adapter there on the flagpole, or not flagpole, the fence rail, that basically holds that up kind of at an angle and keeps these guys from falling forward. I'll go ahead and talk about how these TIE fighters are going to mount on. So you see these straps here, they kind of blend in with the truck, you know, because I'm a Texas Tech fan, so everything is red and black, and I've got these stripes already here on the side. So these aren't completely obvious what they are. So if we look on the inside, they are ratchet straps. All right. I didn't want to do anything like I'm not going to stick anything to the truck. I don't want tape on it or, you know, anything. I was afraid that if I did something that was hanging from the window, that it would rain and I'd have to have, you know, too much for the windows to be down. So I didn't want to go down that road. So I debated all different kinds of ideas. You know, I thought about extending my steps out and setting them on the steps, or moving them back here underneath the trees. But that kind of threw off the whole balance of the lights on the side of the truck. So then I came up with this ratchet strap idea. And this took a few attempts of different style straps and everything to get it right. And I finally figured out if I put the straps on and I leave them just a little bit loose, then when I close the door, it basically cinches everything up tight, you know, because all this kind of closes up in the weather seal. I got to give it a good slug there. And now this guy is super, super tight. And once I get everything hung on it, I'll probably crank it down another notch. But this is basically a hanging sleeve for another custom 3D printed adapter. So basically I custom designed the 3D print mounts that you see here that hold everything together with the EMT. And then I custom designed these guys. It's basically got a little slot in it. So that's to hang over the band. So basically I'll have 3 of these that will slide over the band here on the top. And then I'll use some zip ties down at the bottom, just kind of attach the lights, keep things from swinging around. And then my TIE fighters will hang on the doors. That'll be the very last thing I do, because it kind of makes it harder getting in and out. I don't want to close the doors too much with those on there. Once I get everything hooked up at the show, I'll show you the network and how everything's communicating. And I'll be controlling all of this using light-o-rama software on my laptop to run the show. All right, thanks. Well, everything is officially tested and running except for one snowflake I have to repair. So you can see here I've got my sequence running. Now you can barely see it, it's kind of daylight, but see some lights flashing there. Now I've got the TIE fighters hanging, so you can see kind of how those mounts work. They've got kind of some sticky back tape on them doesn't stick to the truck, but it provides cushion against the truck. That's like air conditioner insulation tape. Everything up here is running. Got Darth Vader himself here on the front of the truck. Now I've got some speakers in the back, but right now you can hear audio running from the inside. So you can see that switch panel lit up now. So it's got 3 controllers on. Got everything running here on the laptop. There's a sequence running on light-o-rama. Let's see. Turn this down a little bit. I've got a FM broadcast antenna over there on the passenger seat, so that's what's keeping all the audio the same between all the speakers. Can't really do Bluetooth or anything, it introduces too much lag. So by using FM, I can get the same thing in the truck and tune in the speaker I have back here in the back, get it all on the same channel, and it works great. You can see here I got some wires running through the door. So these are the Ethernet cables. You see those running down the seat, and I just got a switch laying here in the back. I kind of cheated, it's run off the built-in inverter in the truck. I could run a 5-volt supply, but it wasn't really worth the hassle just with this little bitty switch. So that's it. Everything is up and talking, and thank you for tuning into our channel here.